My name is Charles Hill. I live in the community of Richmond Hill. I was born in Muskoka, which is north of here, on a family farm. Being born on a farm and raised, one of the interesting things that happens in that kind of environment is you work with your mother and father on the farm, okay? So you really develop a really interesting relationship with your parents because you're working with them. And so that experience of, particularly most of the farm work was done by my dad, and you work with him, and the teaching is done on a one-to-one basis. It's in a loving manner, okay, where you're learning things from watching your father, or he's teaching you things to do. And you work together towards a common cause. You need to fix something, or something needs to be done, or the cows need to be milked. So it was a really interesting relationship being raised. I have one sibling, I have a younger brother, and both of us would work on the farm. As we got older, then there was a sense of responsibility given to us to do the chores and milk the cows. And the work ethic was, you're up at 6 o'clock, you do your chores, and then you catch the bus to go to school. So there was a regiment around the fact that, there was a discipline that you needed to do in order to be able to support the family business. I still miss them. I still love them, I still pray to them, I still ask for their guidance. I have 3 boys, and they all live in Muskoka, so I go see them as often as I can and see family and reconnect. So we were very involved in the church, doing readings in the choir, going to Sunday school, helping with Sunday school and fundraising. So it was a very active part of our life. And so that's where I always had a very strong spiritual bend. I went to high school in Huntsville. One of the things that I enjoyed the most about high school was I joined the high school band, played music. I was a drummer. I was in a pipe and drum band. We formed a rock band, and me and 3 other friends from high school played at all the local high schools for music, and it was a great way to meet people, and it kind of formulated my interest for university at U of T. I went to the Royal Conservatory there. When the time came to go to university, it was time to leave the family farm. And after graduation, it was to my brother and I, who wants to take over the farm? And I looked at my brother, he looked at me, we said, this is a lot of hard work, so neither one of us decided to do that. So my father retired and sold the farm, but kept acreage, and sold and built a farm and continued to garden, and that was kind of the story there. For the first couple of years, I was a professional musician. The lifestyle didn't really suit a farm boy because the hours of work were like from 5 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning. And of course, being born on a farm, our days start at 6 and run to 6. So I wasn't getting much sleep. So I did that for a couple of years. It was great. I had some great opportunities of playing as a professional musician. But fortunately, I took business and commerce at U of T, and I decided to engage that. Was hired by Bell Canada, worked for them for 30 years. I've always been involved with charity. When I first started in my business career, particularly with Bell, we were very involved with charities to help the deaf. And then that kind of got me involved with the United Way, and so I was very heavily involved with the MS campaign here in Toronto, and working with United Way on a number of projects. And then from there, I was asked to sit on the board for the homeless shelters in Toronto. And I worked there for 9 years. That was very heartwarming work, dealing with the homeless in Toronto. We had a contract with the city employees that actually run all the homeless shelters. And the contract was coming due. And the executive director that worked under my guidance, we're looking for somebody to help with mediation. And he reached out to somebody who he had heard that would help with mediation. And so we had a meeting with her, and her sister came, and we met about what this would entail. And they were Baha'is from Richmond Hill. So in the dialogue that we had, they said, well, we belong to the Baha'i faith, and we have these things called firesides and devotionals. Would you like to come? And so I did. What really resonated me with the Baha'i faith was, because of my service, is that strong bend towards service to humanity and the strong sense of commitment to community. And they really struck me as to what the faith really is about. And then, of course, from there, you learn about the principles of the faith and, the independent investigation of the truth and equality and human rights. And so it just really resonated with me. It wasn't me reaching out to them, although I guess unconsciously, or in my unconsciously, I was reaching out. But they reached out to me and said, "Oh well, we have a Ruhi class on Book 1. Would you like to come and learn a little bit more?" And so just that openness to share the faith, share the belief structure, and just the openness of Baha'is that really still resonates with me to this day. I think probably, to me, it's safe for me to say I've always met a good Baha'i. I've never met a bad one, okay? So that's kind of my experience. And they're family now. They're family. We very involved in the community, so I see them all the time, and it's very loving. That was it. I went to 2 or 3 firesides. I went to a number of devotionals, and within a year, I said, I'm a Baha'i. Was hired by Bell Canada, worked for them for 30 years. retired as Vice President of Operations, and then said, well, I'm way too early to retire, and then I worked for Manulife Financial here in the city of Toronto. And then I did that for about 3 years, and then said, I kind of done this before. So I decided to open up my own business as a management consultant, and 2 weeks later found myself in Saudi Arabia on a 3-year contract working in the Middle East. So I was a Baha'i when I went to the Middle East. And interesting opportunity, being a Baha'i in the Middle East. Of course, me being from the West, as being a Baha'i in the Middle East, I really didn't have a sense of what that might mean. So I just was saying, I'm a Baha'i. They would ask me, or they would identify the fact that they said, oh, you're from the second last prophet. And I would say, no, I'm from the last prophet. And they would look, curiously at me and think, you're not a Muslim. I said, no, I'm a Baha'i. And what that did is open the conversation. By asking the question, open the conversation. And I took with me a number of the cards that have the principles on it, and I would share it with them, and we would read and talk about the principles. And all my friends of the Muslim faith would say, these principles are actually in the Quran. And I would say, aha. We have the same fundamental beliefs. So we should be working together to make this world a better place. So I'm very involved in the Toronto Area Interfaith Council. I also sit on the York Region Interfaith Network. I'm currently also on the board of directors as the treasurer for the Parliament of World Religions, which is happening here in Toronto. We have 6,500, 7,000 delegates coming from across the world. It's an international conference on interfaith, primarily to look at inclusivity and the power of love. And a number of themes within this is equality, justice, the Indigenous people, the environment, violence. And so there's a number of different programs, and I'm very proud of how the Baha'is are so involved with the organization of it. We have 4 or 5 keynote speakers. We are involved in 50 programs.
What about the Rastafarians, Kamaris, and Baha'i? Did I mention Unitarians? We're all part of the interfaith pie. What about global New Thought, the Shinto and the Druze? And don't forget the Zoroastrians. They've been here longer than the Jews. Let's make room at the table. We can always add one more plate. Let's make room. Even if you come late, let's make room at the table. We can stretch it if need be until everyone is seated at the table of humanity.
We were at a board meeting, and one of the spiritual leaders from the Hindu community is on the board. And we were talking about space allocations, because we have booths where different faith groups can set up. And part of the dialogue was around some of the faiths have ecumenical, modern belief structure, and others are traditional, but of the same faith grouping. So we're thinking about, well, we can't put them beside these ones because we don't want to cause any strife and whatever. And this gentleman, who is a significant leader in the Hindu community, stood up and said, it would be great if we were more like the Baha'is, because they are well organized, they are open to every faith, and they have an organization structure and a message that is consistent no matter where you go. So it would be so much easier if we were all like Baha'is. And I'm just so proud of that other faiths are recognizing the contribution and the message that we give. So. Again, I've always been involved in charity. So during my tenure with Bell Canada, I was seconded to England to work with Cable and Wireless, because we were partners with them on a number of projects. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to work with the military in the UK on an initiative that was training. The short of the story goes is we saved a whole bunch of money by diverting costs with training, because we would share. And we got permission from our leadership to be able to donate parts of that money to a charity, and which we did. And when I left about a year and a half later, and just kind of a few, 3 or 4 years went by, I was recognized and knighted for this service in the UK. So that was kind of a pleasant experience. But anyway, coming back to Canada, now I'm the president of the Order of St. George here, and we do a lot of work with mental health, particularly with PTSD and OSI. And so we donate quite a bit of money to youth, particularly for the cadets programs, and then to help with PTSD for veterans. I wanted to show the fact of the strong commitment that we have within the community as an interfaith organization. John Joseph Masadrea, who is the Reverend here, I serve on the Interfaith Council with him. I serve on the Parliament of World Religions Board with him. And I said, I would really like to have this in your church to show the harmonization and unity that we have in common messages. And he said, I'd love to. And so that's why I'm here, is to show that we are united arm in arm in what we're trying to do. It does not matter what your background is. If you are seeking, it will come to you like the breeze.